Hey everyone, so it's been a few months since my last video, and since then I've actually started playing a new TCG altogether. So this new TCG is Magic the Gathering, and it's actually something I haven't made a video on in almost 15 years. Like wow, time really flies. However, what's different from this time is that the format I'm actually playing in right now is actually, as you can see, Commander format. So what makes Commander format different from regular Magic the Gathering is that unlike regular Magic the Gathering where you have a 60 card deck and up to 4 copies of each card except for basic lands, Commander format makes you create a deck that has 99 cards and it's a singleton format, so you can only have 1 copy of each card with the exception of basic lands such as islands, plains, swamps, forests, mountains, and so on and so forth. So I've been playing in this format for about 3 months now, and there are definitely some things I like about it and some things I dislike about it. So to start off with what I like about Commander is that compared to something like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or regular Magic the Gathering like formats like Modern or like even Legacy and Vintage, is that Commander format offers a lot, and by a lot, I mean it literally feels like there are infinitely many different options of what you can choose as your commander. And even if 2 decks have the exact same commander, like it's possible that those 2 decks are built completely differently, such that when they start playing together, aside from the having that one commander card in common, the playstyle of the deck is just so different. It's like you literally wouldn't be able to tell that you would literally think that it's like 2 different decks completely. Well, so one other thing that I would feel like I feel like could be improved though is that I'm not sure how I feel about the current Commander format. So what I mean by this is that by default, Commander is kind of a 4-way free-for-all rather than what we're usually used to in other Magic the Gathering formats or even Yu-Gi-Oh! Where it's like a 1v1. So why do I say this, that 4-way free-for-all is like a downside? Well, for one, I feel like a 4-way free-for-all makes the game feel a lot less decisive. So what I mean by this is that compared to something like Yu-Gi-Oh! Where it's 1v1, it feels more like if you're the better player or you have the better deck, then you are expected to win. But in 4-way free-for-all, it creates a situation where the best player with the best deck doesn't always win. They need to build temporary alliances and try to get along with the other players. If you come up and start making aggressive plays and build too much of an early lead, the other players may try to team up to target you and like knock you down a peg to basically keep you in check. But at the same time, if you play too passively, the other players will think you're an easy target and start trying to pick you off. So it creates a situation in which it discourages you from going all out, but at the same time, it also encourages you to hold back as well. And in addition, I feel that in a 4-way free-for-all, like if you are the first to be eliminated, obviously, well, you lost. But what if you finish 2nd place? What if you finish 3rd place? It creates a situation in which, like, in order to win the pod, it's kind of like you have to get 1st place or bust. There's no bonus points for finishing 2nd out of the 4 people. Like, according to the official competitive gameplay, I think that's a rule. If someone knows better, please correct me on this. But that's another thing I dislike is that if you finish 2nd place, it's like no different from if you finish last place. As far as the competition is concerned, you lost in your pod. So that's one thing I feel like could be improved on. Maybe like if, let's say the 1st place gets 3 points, 2nd place 2 points, 3rd place gets 1 point, and then the last place gets nothing, then I feel like it would actually be a little bit more, how should I say, like create a little bit more decisiveness in the sense that even if you don't win the pod, you're not, like the person who finished 2nd place is at least given a little bit more reward than someone who finished like last place. But having said that, I actually kind of really like the bracket system. So unlike Yu-Gi-Oh, where the tier list is completely player defined, the bracket system is actually something that the Wizards of the Coast officially came up with. And for example, the deck I'm about to show you today is actually on the higher end of a bracket 4. And by bracket 4, it basically means that it's not fully competitive like bracket 5, but it's definitely one of those decks that has no qualms about playing the best cards it has available. And it is capable of winning much more quickly compared to lower brackets like bracket 3, where, if I remember correctly, you're only allowed to have up to 3 game changer cards. Or bracket 2, which is basically the equivalent of a freshly pre-constructed deck. So having said that, let's move on to the main topic of today, which is my deck profile. And as you can see, my commander is actually Korvold, the Faker's King, one of the best, if not the best JUND commanders out there for the colors of black, red, and green. So why I chose Korvold is that it has a really interesting effect. It's 5 converted mana cost for 4/4 with flying. So at first glance, you might think, oh, its stats are actually not worth. You might think the stats are not worth the mana cost, but it actually has an effect where it says whenever you sacrifice another permanent, and note it says permanent, not just creature. So this can be artifact, enchantment, creature, anything like that. And when you sacrifice another permanent, you draw a card. So basically, you automatically replace the card you sacrifice. You automatically replace it in terms of card advantage by drawing another card. And you Korvold gets a +1/+1 counter. And in addition, whenever he enters the battlefield or attacks, you have to sack another permanent. And this is the one part where I feel like I'm not sure how I feel about this. If it says whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you can sacrifice another permanent, it would be a lot better because you have the option. But as it stands right now, it forces you to sacrifice another permanent. So you do have to watch out when you want to cast this from the command zone. Because if all you have are like 5 lands and you tap all 5 lands and play this, congratulations, you just forced yourself to sacrifice 1 land. And next turn, you're only starting off with 4 available mana, not 5. Although it does let you draw another card to try to replace it, the land you sacrifice, there's no guarantee that the card you drew will help you with playing on a lower mana curve the following turn. So yeah, that's it for Korvold. However, as you'll soon see what this deck does, you'll understand why 99% of the time when you cast Korvold, you will almost always have something ready to sacrifice. And if anything, what you sacrifice will actually benefit you. So starting off with the creatures, okay, let's start with the mana dork creatures. I run Birds of Paradise, which is one of the best mana dorks, 1 mana, and you can tap for any color, okay? And it also has flying. Also have Ignoble Hierarch. You can tap it for any of the JUND colors, which is black, red, or green. And it also has second ability in Exalted. So if you have the Ignoble Hierarch out and you have Korvold out, if you attack, and Korvold is the only creature you have that's attacking, Korvold automatically gets +1/+1 until the end of the turn. Next up, we have the Delighted Halfling. Again, another mana dork. It's actually 1 2-for-1, which means its stats are actually pretty solid for its mana cost. And you can tap it for, normally you can always tap it for colorless mana. But if you're going to cast a legendary creature spell, like the Korvold, for instance, you can actually tap for any color of mana to your mana pool, but it has to be used to cast a legendary creature spell. Next up, Deathbright Shaman. Again, a really good mana dork. It's good because you can cast it with both either black or green. And given how many people use fetch lands these days, you can its first effect basically allows you to tap it and exile any land from any graveyard, not just your own, and then basically add 1 mana of any color. This could be a little bit of an inconvenience if you or your opponents don't have any lands in the graveyard early on. But if your opponents do have, let's say maybe use the fetch land, this could actually help you out in terms of a double plus, because 1, it gets rid of a land from your opponent's graveyard so that they can use it later on, and 2, it also gives you the mana, so it's like a win-win. And lastly, from the mana dork, Fanatic of Roness. Like, I get that this is a 2 mana cost, but because it has 4 toughness, this makes it like lightning bolt proof. Also, its first effect allows it to tap for 1 green mana. But what's even more interesting about it is that if you control a creature with power 4 or more, you can tap it, and you get not just 1, not 2, not even 3, but 4 green mana instead. So this effect will be really useful if you actually manage to have Korvold out. So that's it for the mana dorks. Next up, cards that generate what you would call the treasure tokens. I have Ancient Copper Dragon, Gold Span Dragon, and also Old Gnawbone. These are like the 3 biggest creatures in this deck aside from my commander Korvold. And basically all of them have a similar ability in the sense that when they attack or deal damage by battle or some way, shape, or form, they give you treasure tokens. For instance, Ancient Copper Dragon lets you roll a 20-sided dice, and then depending on what number you roll, you get that many treasure tokens. Old Gnawbone, its effect basically says that whenever any creature, not just itself, but any creature deals damage to an opponent, you get that many treasure tokens. So by itself, it's already a flying 7/7. So it can dodge creatures that don't have flying. And if you hit your opponent for 7 damage, great, you get 7 treasure tokens right there. And same with this one. It says, if normally this one says Gold Span, if it attacks, you get a treasure token. But if it becomes a target of a spell or an ability, so if your opponent tries to, let's say, exile it with, say, a Path to Exile or something like that, like, sure, you may lose this card, but you still get a treasure token to replace it immediately. So yeah. So more token generating cards: Ruthless Technomancer, Pitiless Plunderer, and the funniest card that I use in this deck, I'll actually show you a combo you can do with this card at the end of this video: Warren Soul Trader. All of these can generate additional treasure tokens, as well as Jorn. Basically increases the number of treasure tokens you would generate from any source. In addition, we also have the Ragavan Nimble Pilferer, again, a treasure token generated, and you can cast it with its dash ability to give it haste. Impulsive Pilferer, I'm just using it for its ability when it dies. So if I have this on the field already and I cast Korvold, this would be the default creature I would sacrifice, because then Korvold would get a +1/+1 counter and satisfy its sacrificing ability, and it lets me draw a card. Well, this thing, as soon as it dies and sacrifices by Korvold, I get a treasure token as well. Next up, for other powerful creature cards, Shieldred the Apocalypse. Whenever I draw a card, I gain life. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose life. Yeah, win-win. This card is ridiculously good. Orcish Bowmasters. Once again, just like Shieldred, it punishes the opponent for drawing cards. Next up, for token generation, again, we have something like Shatterfang the Squirrel General. Really good for like generating token armies that can literally swing at your opponent. Or, once again, use a sacrifice fodder for a Korvold. Tireless Provisioner. Again, another token generating, except this time it's with landfall. Tinderwall is Defender, but it's only 1 mana cost, and at any time, if I wanted to, I can just sacrifice this to gain 2 mana. So the net mana this gives you is always positive. Aftermath Analyst and Six. These two work really well in conjunction with each other because they both allow you to mill cards from the top of your library to the graveyard. And basically, if you mill a land card and whatnot with 6, you can actually add one of them to your hand. Whereas Aftermath Analyst, you can actually sacrifice it and basically return all lands that in your graveyard back to the battlefield. So this means that if, let's say, you unfortunately have to sacrifice a land for Korvold's effect early on, like, don't fret. If you have Aftermath Analyst, you can bring those lands right back by sacrificing this. And if you sacrifice this while Korvold's on the field, you still get your draw, and Korvold still gets a +1/+1. So next, I have a Dualcaster Mage. Again, another piece for a separate, infinite, pseudo-infinite loop combo. And the thing is, like Orcish Bowmasters, this has Flash, so you can play it on either player's turn. Reassembling a skeleton, this thing is actually hilarious because of its ability to reborn itself from the graveyard, which means that if I have this and Korvold on the field, I'll always use this to sacrifice to meet Korvold's condition, because this can just come back, and then if I attack with Korvold, I can just sacrifice it again, and I literally lose no advantage whatsoever. So that's it for the creatures. Next up, we have the various artifacts. Obviously, Soul Ring, every deck runs this. Arcane Signet, every deck runs this. Commander Sphere, this card, if you're playing bracket 5, you might think it's too slow. But for brackets 4 and below, like, this is actually a pretty good card because it's, again, one of those mana rocks that you can tap for mana. I get it costs 3 mana to play it, so it's still a net -2. But the one good thing about it is that you can sacrifice it at any time to draw a card. So if you tap this for mana already and you have Korvold out, you can sacrifice this. This lets you draw a card, and Korvold lets you draw an additional card. So it's really like a 1 for 2 almost. Lotus Petal, because it's a 1 free mana of any color. And if you sacrifice it, again, Korvold draws you more cards immediately. One Ring. This card is actually one of the best game changers. Because first of all, it's indestructible. So your opponent cannot destroy it to prevent you from gaining its advantages. Second of all, you can always tap it and give it a counter. And then you draw cards based on how many counters it has. So basically, the first time you tap it, you draw 1. Second time you do it, you draw 2. Third time you do it, you draw 3, so on and so forth. So you might be asking, okay, fine, what's the catch? Well, the catch is that at the beginning of your upkeep, basically you lose 1 life for every counter it has on there. So if the first time you do it, okay, you draw 1 card. Next turn you lose 1 life. You do it again. Next turn you lose 2 life. So it's indestructible. How do you get rid of it? Well, you play your Korvold and you sack it, and you still get your draw. So basically, you just drew the equivalent of 3 cards off this, and you still only lost at most 1 life. That's a pretty good trade-off if you think about it. So next up, for the artifacts, we have 1 Ember Cleave and 1 each of a Lightning Greaves and Swift Foot Boots. These 2 are just here to really give haste to any creature that I play early on. Because aside from things like Gold Span Dragon, I think most of my creatures, they don't have haste by default. And in addition to getting haste, they also give an ability that cannot give the equipped creature an ability that it cannot be targeted. So if, let's say, I have Korvold out on the field and I equip it with one of these, basically this gives Korvold an additional layer of protection from like spot removal cards like Path to Exile, Swords to Plowshares, all of that. And basically, I can just like attack with it without worrying about my opponent trying to get rid of it via like either by bouncing it or hitting with like a Cyclonic Rift or something like that. And because one interesting thing about Commander is like the whole Commander damage is that it doesn't matter how many life you have. If you get hit at any point with 21 damage or more from the same Commander, even if you have like 100 life because of life gain, you automatically lose. So Ember Cleave helps with that because it gives the equipped creature double strike and trample and gives it +1/+1. So if I equip it with Korvold and attack with it, so even if I just sacrifice, like play Korvold that same turn, and it has, let's say I sacrifice 1 card off of it, it's now a 5/5, this will make it a 6/6 flying trample double strike. So if it goes through, that's 12 damage right there. That's already more than halfway to your win condition off of just 1 attack. And best part, it also has flash, which means that you can play it during either player's turn. So anyways, next up, I only have 3 enchantments. The first 2 are pretty straightforward. Underworld Breach, Game Changer, lets you play cards from your graveyard as if they were in your hand. Black Market Connections, this card is so good, I would actually label it as borderline Game Changer level. Like, this card has 3 effects, and you don't have to pay any additional mana to use this effect, any of its abilities, but instead you pay life, which makes it really good in early game. So if you pay 1 life, you can create a treasure token. If you pay 2 life, you can draw a card. And if you want to give up 3 life, you actually get a free 3/2 creature. And you can use all 3 of its abilities on the same turn. So if you play it on turn 1 somehow, let's say with a dark ritual or something like that, as early as turn 2, you get a treasure token. So that in and of itself covers basically like pays for its own mana cost. And on top of that, you get to draw an additional card, and you get a free 3/2 creature. And at that stage in the game, a 3/2 creature is pretty strong. And the last enchantment is like a necromancy. So it basically brings back a creature from a graveyard. And if I remember correctly, it says like you can actually bring it from any graveyard, not just your own. And the best part is that unlike other like reanimate-esque cards, this thing you can play it as if it had flash. So you can even, let's say if your opponent's about to attack you with everything they have, you can drop this and bring back one of your creatures and block them, and maybe you might survive an extra turn. Next up for the sorceries, well, I have Demonic Tutor, which is, well, like a tutor for anything. Diabolic Intent, again, same thing, like tutor for anything, except you have to sacrifice a creature. But as I mentioned in this deck, that's actually good because you want to sacrifice other cards while Korvold's face up. So this is also a sacrifice outlet. Silent Blood, Nice Whisper, draw 2 cards but lose 2 life. Damnation and Toxic Deluge, these 2 are basically the board wipes. So if you feel like all 3 of your other opponents are getting out of hand, they have a board that's too big and too scary, and you feel like you're behind, drop one of these on them and then watch them cry. Torment of Hellfire, this thing is actually hilarious because in the late game, depending on how many treasure tokens you have created, you can sack all the treasure tokens and then play this and literally just one-shot all 3 of your opponents. Nature's Lore and 3 Visits, essentially really helpful for like your mana ramp early on. And note that both of them just says like search your library for a forest card and put it on the battlefield. It does not say the word tapped. So if you search for a vanilla forest because you just need that extra 1 mana, this actually like you can play it and use that forest card you searched immediately. Natural Order, like again another game changer, lets you sacrifice any green creature in order to place another green creature from your library onto the battlefield immediately. And because it literally says any green creature, this means you can literally go from Ignoble Hierarch to Old Gnawbone, okay? You can literally say, I can use Natural Order, sacrifice Ignoble Hierarch, and literally just play Old Gnawbone for free. And no Old Gnawbone's effect, its mana cost is 7, and whereas Natural Orders is only 4. And it saves you the effort of having to hard draw Old Gnawbone altogether. So yes, Natural Order definitely earned its place as a game changer. And since it says word sacrifice in it, I guess I don't need to explain how that benefits with Korvold. Molten Duplication. Well, this thing is really good when you combo it with this card. How this works is that if you have another creature on board, you can play Molten Duplication targeting that creature, and then because Dualcaster has flash, you play Dualcaster Mage, and as soon as it hits the field, it targets any spell that's on the stack, instant or sorcery spell, and you can copy Molten Duplication. And this time with the copy, you target the Dualcaster Mage. You create another copy of Dualcaster Mage, and let's see if I can find a copy token. Yes, Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm a huge fan. You create a copy of the Dualcaster Mage, and then that copy will also target the same Molten Duplication. You're going to target the Dualcaster Mage again, and I think you can see where this is going. It's just going to be an infinite loop. And the best part, all of the creatures created all have haste. So now you have, let's say, an army of maybe a few hundred or even a few thousand copies of this thing. You can just attack with all of them and literally just one-shot your opponent. And note that these two combined is only 5 mana together. So with the amount of mana ramp available in this deck, you can get this out pretty early. And speaking of mana ramp, this card, Jessica's Will, probably allows you, if you're smart about it, to get this combo off as early as turn 2. So what this one does is that it has 2 abilities, but if you control your commander, you can choose to use both abilities at once. So Jessica's Will, its first ability says that you can target one opponent and then you get a amount of red mana equal to the number of cards they have in their hand. And the second ability lets you exile the top 3 cards from your library, and then you can play those cards as of this turn as if they were in your hand. So if you manage to exile, if you're land blocked and you manage to exile another land, great, now you get a free land without having to hard draw it. And if you control your commander as well, you still get the same like red mana. So that basically helps you cast your other red spells like the aforementioned these 2. So now imagine you manage to pull this off and you get 5 red mana on turn 2, because let's be real, I think it's realistic to expect at least one of your opponents to have at least 5 cards in their hand. Then you can basically play Molten Duplication and chain and then flash in Dualcaster Mage to copy the duplication and then create an army of like 2/2s with haste. And yeah, if they have haste, you attack, you're probably gonna win. Reanimate is basically the same as Necromancy, except it doesn't have flash, so you can only play it on your turn, but it only costs 1 mana, and it can still bring back any creature. Next up, like Vampiric Tutor and Worldly Tutor. Unlike Demonic Tutor, these do not add the cards to your hand, but because they're instant speed, one thing you can do is that during your opponent's end phase, you can play this and then put any card to the top of your library, guaranteeing that you will draw it. So the difference is that Vampiric Tutor searches for any card, Worldly Tutor only searches for creatures. So for Vampiric Tutor, you don't have to show your opponent what you search. Worldly Tutor, you do. Also, another game changer, Crop Rotation. This card basically allows you to sacrifice any land in order to search your library for another land. And note, it says any land, not just basic land. So yes, also it's an instant, and the land doesn't have to intertap either. Also, Pyroblast and Red Elemental Blast, just more blue hate. Because since I've established that Commander format generally is played in a 4-way free-for-all kind of a format, there's always going to be at least one blue player at your table that will try to counter every single move you make. With Red Elemental Blast and Pyroblast, you can basically counter their counters. Or if they cast their blue commander, you can instantly just one-shot it using just 1 red mana. Next up for removal, Abrupt Decay and Assassin's Trophy also have a Terminate, Nature's Claim, all like a good removals. And you cannot forget about the 1 Lightning Bolt, because, well, is where we do have red access to red. And this thing, for what it is, 1 mana, it's a pretty solid card. And it also, if your opponent is low on life and they only have maybe 3 life left, you can just finish them off with a Lightning Bolt. Deadly Dispute, Thrill Possibilities. Just like cards like Silent Blood, these let you draw additional cards. But, like, again, they're instant speed, so they're really good. Entomb, basically to help you put cards like the Reassembling Skeleton from your library to the graveyard, so that you can keep bringing it back to use as tribute sacrifice fodder for Korvold. Dark Ritual, more mana ramp. And then we have Obscuring Haze, Deadly Rollick, and a Deflecting Swat. So at first glance, all of these cards seem like a decent, but not like exceptionally good. But one thing you have to realize is that if you control your commander, you can cast these for free. No mana cost whatsoever. Deflecting Swat is almost like the equivalent of a red counterspell. It lets you change the target or targets of any a card maybe your opponent has thrown at your way. So if your opponent throws maybe like a Path to Exile at your commander, you can play Deflecting Swat and then change the target to something else. But one thing you have to know is that Deflecting Swat, the other target must be legal. So what I mean by this is that if you cast a spell and your opponent tries to use a Force of Will to counter your spell, you cannot use Deflecting Swat to make the Force of Will try to negate itself. But what you can do is change the target for Force of Will to Deflecting Swat. So now Force of Will will be countering Deflecting Swat, which means the initial spell that you casted can go through unimpeded. Deadly Rollick is like the black version of something like a Swords to Plowshares or Path to Exile, in that it's a free exile of a target creature. While Obscuring Haze is basically a one-turn protection that says, okay, your opponent's creatures cannot deal damage to you whatsoever this turn, whether it's a damage by abilities or battled combat damage. And then I have a Redirect Lightning. Again, it's like a secondary Deflecting Swat. It's not quite as good, but like in the early to mid game, if you have that 1 red mana available and you need to protect one of your cards, this is still like a go-to. Next, finally, I have the Timur Battle Rage. It's like a second version of Embercleave, but it only costs 2 mana, and depending on what I use it on, it can also give it Trample and Double Strike. But it does not, unfortunately, it does not have the +1, +1/+1. But if you think about it, Korvold has so many counters, can easily give itself so many +1/+1 counters. And that's actually why I switched my commander to Korvold from something like Crash the Bloodbraided. And it gives itself +1/+1 counter so quickly that by the time you, if you are attacking and you use like Timur Battle Rage, if this goes through, with or without the extra +1/+1 by Embercleave, chances are you would probably be doing lethal like commander damage to the opponent. So yeah, that's it for this. That's it for the instant spells. Let's move on to the land base. So obviously, Command Tower, this is a must-have. It enters untapped and it gives you any color based on your commander's color identity. In this case, black, red, green. Mana Confluence, again, like any color, but you have to pay 1 life each time. This is risky, but the thing is, if you can finish your opponent off early on, it's worth it. Reflecting Pool basically allows you to add any color of mana that any existing land you control can already produce. So this is good in conjunction with other lands, but by itself, it's pretty useless. Zeotora Proving Ground. The only downside with this is that it enters a battlefield tapped, but it has 2 huge advantages. One, because it's treated as a swamp, mountain, and forest, this makes it a legitimate target to be searched for by cards like Nature's Lore and 3 Visits. Second of all, it has a late game cycling ability, which means that if you already have plenty of lands and you have no spells to cast and you draw this as your like a draw for turn, instead of playing this and just ending your turn, you can actually pay 3 mana to discard this and draw another card. Ancient Tomb, game changer because it's a free, you can tap it to give you 2 colorless mana, whereas regular lands usually only give you 1. Treasure Vault, because again, the treasure token creation is just so good with Korvold. Next up, we have the fetch lands. So these are lands that can you can sacrifice them to search for either one of like 2 lands. So this one is like Swamp Mountain, Forest Mountain, and then Forest and Swamp. And once again, these can actually search for your Zeotora Proving Grounds as well. But in addition, they also do not say enter the battlefield tapped. So if you search for a basic land, it automatically enters the battlefield untapped. And since they say sacrifice as well, I think you know where I'm going to go with this. And 3 of the best cards you can search in addition to Zeotora is like these dual shock lands. So these ones are interesting because they can enter the battlefield untapped, but you have to pay 2 life. Or if you don't want to pay 2 life, they enter the battlefield tapped. So if you pay 1 life here and you pay another 2 life here, you basically pay 3 life, but you get a dual land that can tap for either color of this one's black green, red black. So yes, the shock lands are really good. Next up, you have the Verge lands. These lands are also extremely good because by default, they also enter untapped, and normally they can only tap for 1 color. the Blazemar, this one taps for black mana, this one taps for red, this one taps for green. But if you control a basic land of either of its colors, so this one's like mountain swamp, mountain forest, forest swamp, they can tap for both colors. And given that these three shock lands, as well as the Zeratora Proving Ground tri-land, I guess if we want to call it that, they all have like all the different land types. They do fulfill these conditions. Next up, we have the three what we call pain lands. So again, by default, they enter untapped, but they also tap for colorless mana by default. But they can also tap for colored mana. For instance, this one for red, green, or like black, green, something like that. But if you do, you have to pay 1 life to do it. So for these ones, you have to be very careful because, for instance, let's say you want to cast something like a Aftermath Analyst, and you have, let's say, these two lands in play. So you can use, instead of tapping this for red, green mana, and then tapping this for, let's say, red mana or black mana, in which case you have to pay 2 life, you can tap this for green mana and tap this for colorless, and you still play this. So this way you only lose 1 life instead of 2. So for these pain lands, you just have to be really smart about using them and see, like, do I really need to tap for the specific colored mana, or am I okay with just tapping for colorless? Next up, we have the check lands. These, by default, enter the battlefield tapped. But if you control, let's say, a basic land of, let's say, like either of its colors, they enter untapped instead. And now, finally, we have the basic lands. I have 4 mountains, 4 forests, sorry. Now we have 4 mountains. And lastly, I have 4 swamps. So these are the basic lands. They just give 1 color by default, and they always enter the battlefield untapped. And they're searchable by a lot of the cards like Crop Rotation, Nature's Lord, 3 Visits, as well as our previously established fetch lands. So anyway, that's it for the my Korvold commander deck. This one, if I have to say like what bracket it is, I would say, as of right now, it's on the higher end of bracket 4, but not yet at bracket 5 level. I have test played it with a few times, and like I will now show you one of the funniest and most like annoying combos that I actually managed to pull off one time at my local trading card game shop. And this actually pissed off a lot of my opponents as well. So this one will actually involve the card. Let's see if I can just find it real quick. It will involve Shadowfang, the Squirrel General, and it will involve the Worn Soul Trader. So let's say in this particular case you have this on the battlefield, and let's say for some reason you had enough mana, you managed to pull out your Reassembling Skeleton as well. So what you're gonna do here is you're gonna pay 1 life for the Worn Soul Trader. You're gonna sacrifice the Reassembling Skeleton in order to create a treasure token. And since you just created a token, Shadowfang, the Squirrel General, his effect will come into place, and he's also going to create another token, a Squirrel token. And for the record, the Squirrel token is a creature. So now you're going to use the Worn Soul Trader ability again, and note that since you sacrifice something, the Korvold automatically draws you a card from your deck. Now you're going to sacrifice this, and since Korvold saw you sacrifice something, it's going to draw you another card, and you're going to create another treasure token. And because you create another treasure token, Shadowfang creates another Squirrel token. So now you're just going to keep sacrificing this, draw another card, get more treasure tokens. This creates another Squirrel token, sacrifice it again, draw another card with Korvold, and then create another treasure token, and then create another Squirrel token. So obviously, as you can see, this is kind of almost like a pseudo infinite loop. And eventually, let's say you say, oh, I'm running low on life. What do I do? Well, if you're running low on life, hopefully, not guaranteed, but hopefully, one of these cards that you drew would be Shieldred the Apocalypse. So what you're going to do is you're going to crack all of the treasure tokens to play the Shieldred the Apocalypse. So now you're going to continue the combo. Warren Soul Trader, sack this. You pay 1 life, but you draw a card. So now you gain 2 life. So every time you use this combo, your net gain is actually you gain 1 life. And you still create the treasure token, and the swirl token automatically self-replenishes. And you can keep doing this, and you keep drawing everything until you inevitably draw out your entire deck. So now you're probably wondering, okay, I drew out my entire deck. Let's say I have 100 spare mana. I have 100 spare mana to cast. What do I do? Well, so let's say you crack all 100 treasure tokens. You now have 100 spare mana available. So what you're gonna do at this point is, at this point you should have drawn your Torment of Hellfire, and even if you didn't, like think about it, Demonic Tutor, Diabolic Intent. These are all cards which you can use, or even like not even that. You can also have things like what you call it, like Vampiric Tutor to all that can help you search for your Torment of Hellfire. So now you have Torment of Hellfire in your hand. You're gonna play it and basically like use all your mana to ensure the maximum amount of damage. Now, if your opponents are smart, they're probably gonna say, "Oh no, I'm not gonna take like how should I say, like hundreds of damage from you off of this one card. I'll just counter it with a Force of Will or a Fierce Guardianship." Well, guess what? You still have infinite mana, right? You use Pyroblast, Red Elemental Blast to counter it. And if they still have more counters to drop on top of it, well, guess what? You still have your like more counters available. You can drop your own like Redirect Lightning or Deflecting Swat to make them negate something else. And then essentially guaranteeing that your Torment of Hellfire can basically force its way through no matter what. So yeah, essentially I actually managed to pull this off one time, and my opponents were just so pissed. One of them actually straight up asked me like why I was playing on the lower brackets and why I wasn't playing on the cedh level. And to be honest, most of my opponents for that day, they were all using bracket 2 or bracket 3 level decks. So I actually felt a little bit bad for pulling this off on them. But having said that, yes, this is definitely a combo that you could pull off. And note, it doesn't even require you to go into combat and straight up attack your opponent. You can basically just do this all during like the first main phase. So anyways, that's it for my Korvold commander deck. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.